come in and marry into those families.
Yeah.
They'll, rape one of the daughters or something like that. All of a sudden, that son has a claim, right? They'll even come in on a contractual thing and marry in. Hey, marry this guy, and all of a sudden you've now got a unification of a nation that you've now married into, right?
Yeah.
So, did I answer the question when you said, is it recognized, or what were you? I can't remember.
I guess what you're saying is they recognize it in a way that doesn't
that helps them.
That doesn't directly appeal to your situation. You choose not to be, I guess, recognized in that way. You're your own person. You don't want to be represented by.
Well, what we're saying is that we've understood that that's all corruption. That's the next level we've gotten to. That we understand that that's corruption there, but they do owe that responsibility to us. Yeah. They just don't want to rent them.
Says who?
Well,
says the people who are here. Says history. Says.
So here, read this, so you can read it now. So read it now.
Okay, so this is from 1847.
1847, right?
So it says here, the stupendous deserts between the Natchez and the Bravo rivers are the natural boundaries between the Anglo-Saxon and Mauritanian races. There ends the valley in the west. There Mexico begins. Then beyond the Bravo begin the Moorish people and their Indian associates, to whom Mexico properly belongs. So it's pretty much explaining to you that
the geographical area of where these people were. Of course, that has nothing to do with the Europeans that are there. Not to say that the Europeans haven't woven their way in through treaty and certain things, but definitely it's come at the cost of a lot of the indigenous and the natives not being respected, because that's how it works when you come and take people over, right? So that doesn't really, because that's just sort of out in the air there, right? That statement, you don't know whether that's true or not or whatever, right? You want to go check those things. What I'm trying to tell you is that they've got a mechanism there that is absolutely fighting you tooth and nail for everything that you're asserting, right? We're going to say we're indigenous here. They're going to say, no, you're not. Well, hold on. You just came here. You're a visitor here. Who are you to tell us who's here or not? Well, because this is Canada. Well, Canada's only on paper, right? The land is really America, right? So anyone who's born in the Americas is American, and this is their land. Canada is a colony of England, set up just on paper here. Now, how
does the government recognize that? The federal government recognize
the thing is looking at the indigenous people as the government, not those people who've been saying they're the government since only 1867. Because they can't be the government if they've only been around since 1867.
In a sense, I'm getting the vibe that you guys are almost in a peaceful war with the government.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's really not peaceful on their side.
Yeah, on their side it's not peaceful.
That's the issue.
So they'll kidnap you tomorrow.
Women and children and societies and all this stuff are being eaten up and are being killed and decimated, while they're sort of continuing on business as usual, extracting all the natural resources out of the land, doing all the other shit that they're doing, right? So that's where what this comes down to is ownership is 9/10 of the law. Right now they're kind of owning everything. But really, it's not, that's why the natives never understood. You can't give land away because you can't take land.
You can't own land. Yeah.
Right?
Land is for usage, not ownership.
That we have to understand.
Oh, let's start up and then we'll.
We can believe in the ownership of land from the perspective that you can own it while you have it here, but you're only renting it because you're not immortal.
Yeah.
Right? So at a certain point you pass. Now at the end of the day, when all of your family line passes, where do you think the land goes? The land goes back to the land. Right? Now if you continue to have family on that land all the way through it, that's yours then. Absolutely. But you have to have family all the way
on
through
the land,
on that land, which we would say is your land. But then guess what? You'd be tending to the land. You'd be part of the community. You'd be building the land. You'd be part of that nation as well, more than likely. Right? If you think about the breakdowns, right? Because we're not in Greece or in Italy. Italians and Greeks are there looking after their land. But what we're telling you here is that somewhere there they've come in here and they've sort of thrown some people out of their land. That's what we know. Even if you don't believe it's us, they still did it to the Indians, claiming that the Indians were, they were savages and whatever. It still doesn't mean that was your place to come in and take their land. That's what they've done. And then you can see you can see the complicity behind it, or the actual intent, when you see what they did with the children. They took all those children away that they were supposed to pass down the family line and the heritage and put them in schools and completely brainwashed them.
Wait for what?
Absolutely. So that's our case. Now, where you stand in that is where you stand, knowing that as a fact, in a sense, not as just supposition, as a fact.
Well, what is your end goal?
Our end goal would be to be recognized and then to go on, because I think you can see this, eh? You just can't, if you don't have signs to see, if you don't have eyes to see, then we're gonna let you know something's up with this COVID thing. I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm much older than you. This is the first time I've seen anything locked down on some bullshit here. This COVID thing to me is a bunch of, I don't know where you stand with that, but I think that this is something other than it is. If you've done any studying, you realize most of those wars are other than they are. If you look at our inflation, look what's going on here right now. Stuff is messed up. And what I'm trying to tell you is something else is going on. What we believe this is us waking up. And this is why these things are happening. As I said, you just came out of COVID, this whole thing, and now all of a sudden Russia and Ukraine are
Days.
Days are in, they're back at war now. And now everyone's jumping in, but not jumping in, what's going on? But yet when you realize this, from what I understand, Ukraine and Russia are kind of somewhat, like, from my time, I know that Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, which is what Russia was. So they were boys.
40 years ago.
What?
I believe Ukraine became Ukraine 40 years ago.
Fair enough, but let's say this. Ukraine's land was there for thousands of years. What was it 200 years ago? Just because someone came, let's use this analogy, wherever you live right now. If I came to your house right now, let's say you've been living there 10 years, and I took over your house for 4 years.
How did you take over?
Let's say I came in there, murdered you, murdered your father, murdered your whole family, left some of your siblings alive to work on the land, telling them, but trained them to tell them that you were just ghosts. You didn't really exist. We're really your parents. But that you would then work that land year after year after year until you realize, hold on
Hold on a second. Yeah.
hold on, this is really my land. And then you tell them that you know that this is, because remember now, you were signing off on it for the whole part of it. This is their land. Now you realize it's your land. Whose land is it? That's why I say, even in war, what you don't realize is behind the scenes, in international law, once a country's taken over another country, once they've sort of won their kind of thing, technically the land is still supposed to go back to the people, right? At the end of the war, you don't keep that country. You just kind of, whatever it is you were battling about, sort of, you then sort of figure out and move on. That country goes back to those people. That hasn't happened.
And then those people would be able to say, okay, they caused this and this and this, so you need to pay us so we can rebuild our whatever because you did this to us. And then more than likely, once they have a nationality, those people are going to pay them out. They're going to rebuild their whatever. And then, all of a sudden now there's no issues between them until they realize that, Ukraine actually goes all the way up into Russia. And now they're going to be going at them now. We want our stuff back,
So anyways, just to get you back on where I see it is, it seems to me that we have a lot of division. We're looking to get things together
again.
More united. We also see, as I said, what I see is there's entities outside of what we as people will sit down and just talk and eat about. There are entities out there trying some real stuff out there. As I said, this COVID thing is crazy. This war now is crazy. And I'm telling you that more stuff is down the pipe and it doesn't, think about it. I don't know, as I said, how long you guys been here, but some people that didn't look like us went and took over the Capitol building in Ottawa for 3 fucking weeks. Yeah. Like they were set up, they had funding, and they weren't going anywhere. If that doesn't tell you that some people had a problem with the government, what should have resulted out of that? Well, the Prime Minister should come out, they should have a meeting, and they would straighten the shit out, and those people would have gone home. That's not what happened, eh? What happened is, he silenced them, and then they brought the fucking lion. Yeah. Bro, we have to, that's what we're about. Yeah. In a nutshell.
Yeah, the government's really broke.
Yeah.
Well, remember, but this is the problem, right? We've been trained, still again, to keep calling
them the government.
Right, because they're really criminals.
Yeah.
It's a government structure that's been taken over by criminals. That's what our assertion is too. Yeah. That really, what you see there, Prime Minister, you see him, he's really a puppet, or he's a Manchurian candidate. Yeah. They killed the real Prime Minister and they put this guy in there as an example and say, that's how fucking deep it is. And then that Punjabi guy that you see, he's another fucking, so you think that it's just the one guy. No, they bought, not lots of them. The whole system has been infiltrated.
Itself, yeah.
A guy A guy who's not part of it will never get to that
To
position.
that level.
Is what I'm showing you. You know how they have the Green Party lady? She's like one lady, and she's like, you're like, what the fuck? They put her in there for, but any party of anything real, there's an infrastructure and a machine that's working that shit.
Yeah.
And they've got, I see it in my union, they got bodies behind it. They got people that'll step up and vote on that voting day. Huh? Yeah. Yes, yes. And then they have a bunch of people willing to go and do the work that needs to get done. Right? So that's what we're about.
These Moors,
And then he goes online, so he does a
Let's
YouTube
get started.
channel or whatever, and he goes and he's the computer guy. I'm more the
hands-on.
because that's where it's all at to me. The computer's another form of thing. The day they want to shut off your phone,
You're done for it.
anyways, we just do a little sort of thing. You guys are
Father on the left, one on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
By day.
Through a holy prophet.
Through a holy prophet.
Noble Juali. Islam. Islam, Moors. Prophet warns all Muslims governors ordered to read proclamation at each meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical, agitating speeches while at work in their homes or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet, or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Juali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Noble Juali, Islam. To be proclaimed at every meeting, Islam. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now, by the same people of our side of the nation that thought I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet Noble Juali. To the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Islam, this is the instruction from your Prophet Noble Juali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you would be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is now on, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Juali. And that's why many hearts have been turned to stone. Many have eyes to see, but cannot see, ears to hear, but cannot hear, lest they would be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but would sacrifice your utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples Act accordingly, and Allah would bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Islam. What's the any quick updates before you go?
I'm just going to, we have our Vernal Equinox event, which is out in Kingston. That's on the 20th of March. We're looking to drive out there in the evening, catch the sun on the spring solstice, and then come back on the day. And then the week after that, we're having town hall here on the 27th. And then we're looking to go to Hamilton on April 3rd to Rennie's event, which we'll find out about later. And then on the 27th of April, we're going out to Ajax to Kiba's spot. So that's what we got
Islam.
running for the next little.
So before we go on, I don't know if brothers had any more other questions or whatever. You could put those up if anything's on your mind right now, or even relative to what we were talking about before.
How long are like the services usually?
We're usually here from about 12:30 to about 3. At the moment, we just do our Sundays, but this is our spot right here. As the weather changes up in summer and whatever like that, we'll be open a little bit more. But we're here for that for now, and it's more meetings than services. Yeah, because it's it's nationals meeting here. People who have a nationality, have a certain mindset, as well, like yourself. People just coming in off the street, coming in here for the first time or whatever. It would be classes for them, in a way to learn. At the back, that rack at the back, all those are free stuff. So whatever, you could have some literature before you leave, so you at least have something, to review.
How is this funded?
See, what you missed is that's where we're at. This has been funded purely by us, trying to get people together to keep this going. We were across the street at the barber shop. You know the barber shop that's right there?
I think so.
The one that across the street, just down below the food place. I don't know if it's open anymore. Anyways, we were there for the first 4 years and now here. So we've moved up in that period of time. But, to make your rents and all that stuff, you have to be working somewhere, getting finance. And so that's what we've been talking about, the fact that they need to finance us because we are part of the Aboriginal Indigenous that you've taken over and are basically in a form of sort of extracting extra finance of you by the way that they do their business, the profiling and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
I mean, I think to my day now, I would go into a store now and buy weed. 10 years ago, bro, if I was smoking a joint on the street, I'd be hauled into jail.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So you see that, and like I said,
The change.
yeah, but a big part of that is because of the fact that what they were doing was targeting certain communities that knew that marijuana was therapeutic, right? That used to be our communities, right, in a sense. And then once it became mainstream, now it's about making $1 off of it, right? Now it's legal, right? Oh, but you can have a license for $150,000. And what changed from the guy on the street trying to sell that? You'd be doing 10 years in jail. Crazy shit.
Yeah.
Should those guys be allowed out now? Those guys who were busted for smoking weed, if they're still in jail, should they be allowed out now?
Yeah.
For selling weed, you know what I'm saying? No, really. Huh?
Well,
No, you see what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
On a certain level, what was illegal yesterday is legal today. So does the shit yesterday that I can't go
They
to
should have grandfathered that in. Like,
Right.
well, whatever. I
Yeah.
know.
they did
Something has to happen.
No.
Yeah.
But I'm saying.
But-
I'm just sort of-
but again,
just
too-
using those examples
Yeah.
to show you that this stuff, something's up.
Yeah.
Something's definitely up. I don't know what it is. In our case, what we know is you walk into the street and you have some of this in you, you're being whatever. You go to work, most of them are in lower positions. Well, that's how I figured it out. And I start to realize something's up. That's it. But I also realize that we're brothers.
Yeah.
Where I want to sit down and smoke a blunt or drink a beer or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's how it should be, in a sense. And it shouldn't be communities being,
Segregated.
well, in a sense, but also being sort of, what do you call it? Being not profiled, but being not labeled. I'm saying having attention spent to destroy the neighborhoods. You see what I'm saying? That's what I mean by it. Like certain neighborhoods are going to make sure that
That they don't get to a certain level.
Right.
Like once you live in a certain neighborhood, that's what it's gonna be.
An example is when neighborhoods were starting to get prosperous, they introduced crack into the neighborhoods.
Who is that?
Well, they would say
The
government,
so-called government.
so-called government introduced a higher form of cocaine into the neighborhoods because they knew that it would have a very destructive effect on it. So that's the kind of things they do. They will, bring agents in that will start selling weed or heroin or all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on that is definitely seems to be focused on our type of people.
Yeah.
So that's where that's where we're coming from, but also coming from the prospect that we know that Europeans or white so-called, a lot of them don't stand for that. So we're looking to get with them and to sort of try and work some stuff out.
Mhm. And I'm sure it's a tough process.
Absolutely.
I mean, again, more so because of the people who are like us that don't want to recognize it. Like the recognition comes from self first.
Yeah.
Until you see yourself as, who you're supposed to be, nobody out there could really see it. They could tell you, you're the founders of civilization and you're the whatever, but if all we see is we're basketball players and rappers, then we're not going to be founders of civilization again.
Yeah.
We're going to keep repeating this cycle, right? Whereas other people, you see them, somebody is a doctor, their whole society isn't trying to be a movie star.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even with Bollywood or whatever, they're trying to be that. That's a sort of a tunnel approach. Majority of people are trying to be something where they can be a benefit to their people, their society, their family, or whatever.
So earlier you brought up a prophet. Who is this prophet?
His name is Noble Drew Ali.
What makes him a prophet?
Basically, him being able to present certain things, because he's in the 1920s. So a lot of the things that he presented, we're seeing them happen right now, today.
And did he did he read a book, I'm assuming, or some,
Say it again?
he had a journal, I'm assuming? Or
Right, yeah. He had different literature. They had newspapers, they had temples all over. Again, this is in the 1920s.
Yeah.
So, no, go ahead.
Are these prophecies?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And I noticed that there's some influence from Islam as well.
Mm-hmm.
How does that come in?
Not Islam in the traditional sense that people see.
Okay.
So when we look at all the different religions, all the religions are stemming from some form of spiritual disciplines.
Yeah.
Right? They're not what has been presented. When we look at Christianity's presented, they're going to tell you about the Nicene Conference.
Yeah.
And they're going to tell you about the Gnostics and the individuals who were, looking at God as the individual or part of the individual and them getting persecuted for that.
Yeah.
And you can't look at it like that. You have to look at it from the perspective of God's out there.
Yeah.
And then there's a middleman. And then there's whatever. And then there's whatever. And then there's you. And then you get the little sprinkles of blessings left if you're good and if you pay your tithes and whatever, when everybody has their relation with the Creator. So from the Islamic perspective, in our literature, it speaks about Islam being about peace.
Yeah.
So once we recognize that our religion is the religion of peace, then that should be what our way of life is.
Yeah.
Right? Which is why when we go back to his teachings, it talks about, our people needing to learn to love instead of hate. Because once you're loving, that energy is going to be reciprocated.
Yeah.
Right? That's what's going to manifest.
Yeah.
If you're hating, then hate's going to manifest.
Get worse.
It's only going to get worse. And the tradition for societies has been that, pushing things other than love, other than truth, other than peace, other than freedom. Everybody's, selfish, thinking of their own thing, not help their brother, not help their sister. So this is the conditions that come about.
Yeah.
And again, Noble Drew Ali taught that in in the days and times that we're living now, that he was talking about that then, if we didn't listen to what he was saying back then, the worst is going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
Which, you know, from, if we say from pretty much 1930s on, the world has been in turmoil,
Yeah, well,
right? The world has been in
Since the
turmoil.
Depression,
Say it again?
1930.
Yeah.
The
So, 'cause right.
Absolutely, and that's
So-
all tied to
And that's all tied to Noble Drew Ali and all that.
Yeah.
Because even he was even prophesying at that time that depression is going to happen. Get all your money out the bank.
But what is money really?
Absolutely.
Well, right.
But yeah,
And when we
you
think
were
about that
watching
time,
some money,
yeah,
didn't you?
Yeah.
Right. So
right,
Yeah.
right. Actual money is energy. Right. That's why they call it currency.
What's your energy worth?
You know, what is your energy worth? Right. But if people were out there getting paid in gold and silver, then it would be different, because the energy that you're putting out is going to get something, and then you're getting compensated with something of value. You're not compensated with, you know, numbers change on the ledger on your bank statement.
things like just an idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting. Like we learned a lot, but I think we gotta go.
Yeah, no problem. We'll be here though.
We
We'll be
really
here.
appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. All right. For sure. If anything, just grab some stuff from that back rack right there.
yeah, just grab. So is this two, the civic thing?
Yeah, whatever's up there.
This is the worst.
Yeah. No, we're just giving this one. Take the next one right here. That's in that little bundle there, and then maybe this one. Let's see. You can take one of each. Just take those for now and come back.
Yeah, for
You know
sure.
what I mean? So good.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
All right. Peace, yo.
Yeah, thank you.
One of those days.
Right. Yeah. So Nora, so you can talk about how that even happened. Just so background people know that
That was just me getting some food.
I was just getting some food. I was minding my own business.
It started from when I walked in, I wasn't even wearing a mask. And the guy was telling me about a mask. And then
You have to stand up to him.
another guy like, huh?
You have to stand up to him.
I just told him I'm exempt. You didn't say why I'm exempt. I just told him I'm exempt.
that was that.
That was the end of that. And then the next guy walked in after me, but he had a mask on. And then I ordered my co-op for it. And then those two brothers came in with no mask on. And then he asked them to put their mask on.
And they did.
And I seen them reaching in their pocket again. So then after,
Did you say suckers to them?
no, I didn't say they put it on. They didn't put it on.
Yeah.
You're reaching. I just didn't put it on. Then they looked at each other, and I guess I don't know what happened, but they didn't end up putting it on. And fast forward to me paying for the food now. I was telling them that I'm tax exempt. I don't pay taxes, but I'm paying cash, and I was explaining to them. And then she's like, "What do you say?" She called first. The cashier called the other guy, and the guy came. He looked at it, looked at the card, and he's like, "Sorry, the owner is not here. I can't help you." And I'm like, "All right, let's call the manager. Call the owner. I'll wait." I told him to deal with the other people next in line, and I'll wait. I'm not gonna rush.
Yeah.
And after, I don't know what he did, but I didn't even see him make a phone call. But he figured out how to, I guess, remove taxes. Yeah, I don't know. He did something. And then that's when they noticed or they overheard what I was saying. And then after they asked me, "How come you don't pay taxes?" What did he say? He said, "Are you native Indian or whatever?" And that's when I started breaking it down to him about Moors or whatnot. And I told him that I'm actually coming on my way here right now. So if they want to come and ask questions,
Yeah.
feel free.
That's what's up. Islam. Right? So for example, like we were on a call with some people yesterday, with some new people. And you know, what do we do? And you know, after I'm a Moor, do we go to court and fight for the whatever like that? No, you just go get some food.
Be yourself.
Just go get some food and talk with people. That's all. You don't need to be fighting highwaymen and all that stuff. That's not where it's at.
Even just from one of the last, from what I hear them speaking now here, I can tell that they have a sense of some knowledge.
Yeah, they know something. Yeah.
Which one?
The curly hair one.
Yeah, he seems to
Someone
know.
else there, he says he's from somewhere in Spanish or whatever.
Yeah.
So Spanish place.
What I got from all of that is that this guy knows and is dubious, knows that the scam is there, but kind of dubious that we know that the scam is really there.
Mhm.
You can kind of see that. Well, who's recognizing it?
Yeah.
Who's asking all those weird questions?
Yeah,
The other guy seemed very genuine
Yeah.
and really wanted to just know and was interested. But
Yeah, the other guy said he was mixed with Jamaican too. So
he was what?
he was mixed with Jamaican.
Which on the far one, right?
Yeah, the slimmer one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that.
Yeah. So there was one of the Moors put me onto the message of Aquaria.
I realized we could bring this up. I realized they're talking about it. White fragility. That's what we're experiencing. That white fragility.
Yeah.
They're scared now that the gig is up, and now they. This is what I learned in this course. And now they're being defensive, right? Because you're calling them on their shit, which is what used to be white entitlement, right? Is now white fragility.
Yeah.
Right. Same shit. As you can see, it was all, well, who's recognizing this, and what are you here for? What do you think we're here for?
But even on my way here, like walking up here, I'm telling him, like, at the end of the day, all these governments and the higher up, they all know who we are. So it's not about recognition or whatnot. Like, I was telling him the card is just a piece of plastic. You don't need the card.
Yeah.
I explained to him, I was listening to a video yesterday about saying more in the car or whatever.
Mm.
The one black guy and 3 Spanish guys.
Oh yeah.
One from yesterday, the same one.
Yeah.
I explained to him, that guy, he didn't have no car. He just told the officer
Straight.
who he is and what he's doing.
Yeah.
And that's what happens.
Yeah.
The car is just a piece of plastic. It's just an object.
That's all it is. It's really about the energy that you're bringing. So this is the message of Aquaria, the significance and mission of the Aquarian age. And it's put out by the Order of Christian Mystics. Order of Christian Mystics.co.za. Transcribed by Harriet Augusta Curtis. This is the preface. No, not you. Truth is eternal and everlasting. That which was, is, and forever shall be. Manifest variously as it may. One of the mightiest of truths is the mystical meaning of that which is incalculated in the universal teachings as the Divine Mother. In every age, in many languages and religions, under many names and symbols, does the loving mother speak to her children. In ancient Egypt, as a Set, the feminine aspect of the Godhead, the productive principle, the bringer forth, both in nature and in man. She bade her children gather together and prepare for the manifestation of her child as Heru. In that age, the Divine Mother was depicted as gathering together and restoring to oneness, but burying, making esoteric, the severed members of the body of Osiris, Asar, the Egypt term of the great creative aspect of the Godhead, which manifests to the cosmos as the cosmic cause, and our universe as the Son, and to humanity as God, the Father of all, or that united body of universal truth given to all mankind, the grand plan of the manifestation and redemption. This body has indeed been broken into many pieces by mankind throughout the ages, and only the understanding love of the Divine Mother can gather the pieces together and reveal them as one, the eternal living body of truth. Right? And that was San Francisco, California, September 15, 1921, by the authors. Chapter 36, the true priesthood. Malachi 2, verse 7. For the priest's lips should keep knowledge, and they should seek the law at his mouth, for he is the messenger of the Lord of hosts. Malachi 3:1. Behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me, and the Lord whom ye seek shall suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant whom ye delight in. Behold, he shall come, said the Lord of hosts. Hebrews 7:1-3. For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priests of the Most High God, without father, without mother, without descent, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of God, abideth a priest continually. The term priest in its various aspects means an elder, prince, hierophant, and prophet. All these meanings go back to the early days of the race when humanity was taught face to face by elder brothers, divine beings who are the spiritual parents of mankind. So going back to the thing we were talking about the unity, and Juali talking about Moors living together, being around each other, making their meetings, all that type of stuff is part of all the meanings go back to early days of race when humanity was taught face to face by the elders, by the priests, by the scribes, by whoever. Everything was done face to face. And then we look at where it's at now with them removing that, mask on, removing the face, learning through devices, removing that physical interaction that's needed in the aspect of learning. That it's not happening just by, you talk to somebody on the phone and learn. We talk about one of the great experiences with some of the Moors was being able to go to lectures. You know what I mean? And then after the lecture, you get to sit with the master teacher and build or whatever like that, or everybody surround the master teacher building, or, you leave and, you got 3 books of notes from the lecture that now you're going to go through all these notes or whatever like that. And, as you're going through those, stuff is going to be clicking. You're going to be, have your books around you and your research, whatever the case is. Those things are almost out of circulation, which again goes back to the thing that Omar keeps talking about, the face-to-face communication, the meeting up, the being in each other's presence is a big part of where we're going to be going. If we're not in each other's energy and being able to, bounce ideas off each other, because majority of inspiration and innovation and things like that happen in the moment. So if everybody's in the moment with each other, having these light bulbs go off, who knows what that's going to trigger in the other individual who's there, how that's going to inspire them to say, oh yeah, wow, I didn't think about it from that perspective, and adding on to it, building on or whatever, right? But that idea of going back to our foremothers and forefathers, and that everything was face to face with them, unless it was telepathic or whatever, or they project themselves to some other realm to go meet up. They're still meeting up. It's not through some medium. As humanity grew in intellectual attainment, these divine teachers withdrew and left in their stead the more advanced souls among men who had been selected, gathered together, and trained in the secret sciences until they had passed life's great initiation and became one in the consciousness with their divine progenitors. Such initiated priests needed no credentials, no apostolic succession, no robes or outward show of authority, for they carried within them the memory of the touch of the hand of the great initiator, and were able to manifest and demonstrate the power of their priestly office and their right to serve forever before the altar of the Most High. Right? And again, going back to Juali taking away all the secrets, right? And the priesthood being dead and all that. There's no middleman. You're either going to be it and we're going to save the nation, or it's not happening. We are either going to be one with the Creator and then manifest through you the Creator's will, or you're probably just going to be wandering around, soulless around here, right? Again, dealing with why would, as humanity grew in intellectual attainment, these divine teachers withdrew, right? So the high priest and whoever else that had the information withdrawing themselves so that the initiates could have their place. No different than mom's gonna let the heir experience certain things. You're gonna fall, scrape your knee. You're gonna fall off your bike. You're gonna fall off the bed. Your siblings are gonna fight, and that's just what it is. It's part of the journey that we're going on, and the journey that like we talk about with us being in this mindset is getting ourselves back to that place that we know we're supposed to be at. That it's not heaven over there and whatever stuff. It's some stuff that could happen right now. There's some things that we can manifest right now and have those things. And recognizing that making it to this place means that we're those advanced souls that were prepared, that were gathered together, trained, selected in secret sciences, which would be more science to us, right? Until they passed life's great initiation and became one in consciousness with the divine progenitors. Same thing Drew Ali said, man and Allah being one, right? And if anybody has any comments, feel free to put those up. Having been set apart and trained in the laws of the spiritual realms and the sciences of consciously communicating with the spiritual progenitors of the race, the gods, they were able to point out how the physical manifestations of the great law must be observed to produce harmony on earth. So we were talking about yesterday. We were on a call. We're on a Zoom call with some newly awakened Moors coming into the fold, and there was an aspect before we started where our conversation came up about the physical and then the spiritual, and somebody taking the side of, well, the spiritual part is where we're at, and once we do the spiritual, then the physical is gonna catch up in some sense, right? And the reality that wasn't grasped was that we're in the physical, so there is some physical things that have to be done in order for the spirit to even be activated, so that we can use the spiritual how we're supposed to use the spiritual, right? They were able to point out how the physical manifestations of the great law must be observed to produce harmony on earth. So we're in us wanting to have this harmony on earth, there has to be that observation of the great law working on the earth plane. Not just that it's working in some unseen realm, but we need to see it in this realm for it to actually be something to us or for us to use or whatever. Yeah, Omar.
Just expounding on that, because I remember now what one of the points was that she said, "Oh, just hold on for another year," because she asked me initially, "Did I believe in God?" And then I had to pause and thought that I was being set up, and then I said, "God, Allah, I believe in." I said, "But I don't believe him within the confines of how you are defining that from a certain perspective." But it got to the point where she said, "You just have to hold on for just one more year," and I had to really call her on it. And I think Kuja and I were talking about this morning, that somehow there's this time limit. 1 year from now you're going to get your reward. Well, hold on, why haven't we got it up till now?
Yeah.
Why are we even in this state right now if there's a God like that? So what I've noticed is that there's always this preoccupation with it coming. It's never here.
Mm.
It'll come to you. The heaven will be there. No, the heaven's here for all of them, in a sense. But we're in a sense in a hell now. You can say, then they'll say, "Oh, you make of it what you want," but then you realize, well, hey, they're the ones living in houses, having cottages, having all these things.
Yeah, pool in the back.
and travel and all this stuff, and you're the one, suffering. So,
Yeah.
so something else is up. But yeah, once they start talking about that God stuff coming,
Yeah.
it makes me realize that
the work that they've done on us,
Yeah,
that it's like that. That's where our mind's at.
Absolutely.
you know. And again, you know, we're all on a journey, and we're all trying to get somewhere. But it's really going to happen with the ones who are really grounded in it. You know, it's not going to be the floaters. It's going to be the ones who really, you know, hold it, and they smell it, and they taste it, and they actually, you know, experience what this is. You know, the floater people. You know, it's like the thing when you have the eye thing, the eye floater, and you can't move it, but it's there, and you just have to deal with that it's there, even though it's not doing anything, it's not hurting, it's not, you know. But every time you look at something white, this thing's there. Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, with the cop, you know. So those are people that aren't the eye, you know, and they don't have a say, they don't have a position. The position is where the ones who have been selected and groomed and bred and trained and studied and put in their work, put in their late nights or whatever like that, you know, read it, and the sun's coming up and all that stuff. Those are the ones who are going to make something happen with this. You know? True superiority is always recognized and sought, both for advice and leadership. Hence, as the high priest interpreted the divine law, they naturally became the governors or the kings of the people, while the less advanced priests perform various other functions. This is the basis of truth in the doctrine of the divine right of kings. But it is true only when the king is also a prophet and a priest before the Lord. In Egypt, the Pharaoh was also a high priest of the temple. In many more nations, Russia, Japan, etc., the ruler is also the acknowledged head of the church, his coronation as king being followed by his consecration as priest. And then we have real life example of that with Haile Selassie and his coronation, and him being coronated, recognized by the world as being the emperor of that day and time. But also, when you look at the people who are looking at it spiritually or metaphysically, looking at him being a representative of God on earth because of his status, because of the line that he came through, because of, you know, I mean, who he was marrying, because of all these aspects that is not going to be looked at on the physical side of it, but on the spiritual side of it, or in the sense of the divine law, he's royalty, hierarchy, and all that. But then there's also a spiritual component to him that, you know, is where you would have him, you know, lions walking around his grounds. You know, why is there lions walking around his grounds? You know, what's the message being put forth, right? Since religion is the foundation on which all civilization is built, if this foundation is laid according to mere human judgment, even the best, the whole structure is doomed, sooner or later, to totter and fall. The fact that evolution and progress have steadily advanced in spite of many false notes of man-made interpretation of divine wisdom shows that the original foundation was laid by the gods themselves, who came to earth for that purpose. True reform does not mean tearing up the foundations of religion or society, but merely substituting the divine teachings wherever the human has been found wanting. The rule of the true priest king is true kingship in the highest sense, because he is accomplishing the best good of the people in seeing that the divine laws are carried out. Such a rule is always beneficent, since the rules of conduct he lays down are the reflection on earth and the laws of harmony operating in the higher realms. So going back again to Drew Ali, the divine warning, talking about all these things that are going to happen spiritually, so all these things that are going to, or what you're going to lose spiritually, and what the judgment is going to be on earth if you don't have free national name, if you don't have a nationality, if you don't, live by the principles of your ancient foremothers and forefathers, you're going to get to that point where you're going to have to deal with all this negative stuff now, because you bottleneck yourself by not going with the divine law and recognizing that the divine law is there as the guide. The divine law is there for us to be able to, see the way that the master went. The master is going to leave his footprints, so you're not going to be confused when you're on the path. Right? When the high priest desired to consult the Lord, he donned the sacred vestment called the ephod, without which it was said no magical ceremony could be performed, either black or white, entered the Holy of Holies, faced the Ark of the Covenant, and propounded the questions of the people. This vestment bore a breastplate containing the 12 sacred stones upon which were carved the names of the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 signs of the zodiac, showing the foundation of magical power to be based upon the spiritual forces emanating from the signs of the zodiac. And then the reference point for that is another book by them called The Keys of Destiny. I guess that's going into the whole astrological aspect of things.
How do you spell that word, ephod?
E-P-H-O-D.
E-P-H-O-E.
O-O-D. Yeah. A linen apron worn in ancient Hebrew rites, especially a vestment of a high priest, an ancient Hebrew instrument of priestly divination. That's Merriam-Webster. Right? And then the ephod of the Masons is the apron. And the ephod of the Muslims is the jalabia, right? The ephod of just some type of priestly clothing, so that the ritual could happen. And if you don't got that on, rituals going on. Is the sense of that.
It almost reminds me of the Jews when they're going to do that prayer, they wrap around that thing.
Right, yeah. An earthly priesthood grows more and more materialistic as it gets farther and farther from the direct guidance of the divine and further from manifesting divine standards of love, tolerance, and brotherhood. Under such circumstances, it is wise that the church and state be separated, for such an earthly ordained priesthood has no more ability to rule wisely than have civil rulers. The earthly priesthood grows more and more materialistic. So again, going back to the whole idea of the priesthood being dead, every man has to be, by this time, unto themselves the priest that they're looking for, the messenger that you're looking for, the whatever it is that you're looking for outside of yourself, it's probably within. And being that we're in the age that we're in, it's in your best interest to look that way at this point, because looking the other way, you're only gonna meet up on destruction going that way, right? It gets farther and farther from direct guidance of the divine, and further from manifesting divine standards of love, tolerance, and brotherhood. Under such circumstances, it is wise that church and state be separated, for such an earthly ordained priesthood has no more ability to rule wisely than civil rulers. Right? So even the ones, which is why, for example, right now you see all the corruptions in that arena of a civil nature. Things having to do with law, things having to do with courts, things having to do with rights. There's nothing there. There's always violations of that. There's never the ability of the law and nature and things that are supposed to be just going with how the divine law says it has to play out. It's always going in some other direction. Just like we're saying with the metaphysic stuff and all that. When you get into that realm and there's no outward changes except for what's going on with self, then that can't be something for everybody. Those are personal journeys. Those are you walking on the path and you find out certain things, find out certain levels that you should be looking at things, right? That's for your journey. The idea is that everybody's journey should be going in the same direction, right? So when Drew Ali said, nationality is the order of the day. Everybody's going in the direction of nationality. And there's nothing that's going to be questioned. There's not going to be any wavering because there's a focal point of where we're trying to reach, right? Again, the divine standards of love, tolerance, and brotherhood, right? Drew Ali said, love, tolerance, and unity. They're saying the same stuff that he's saying to whoever that they're talking to. Right, whoever they're relaying this message to is, man, remember it's 1921. So this is around the time of Noble Drew Ali. This is California. And more likely, probably some Europeans that have certain, hang-ups with the Jewish stuff, the Christian, whatever, all the different, aspects of salvation that we can have, right? People realize that something's wrong with those. Just like you say, we're gonna go talk to God, and then God's not answering the prayers. Obviously, something's wrong with God. Because why wouldn't God answer? Why would it be, just like we're saying with the timeline, peace more, just like we're saying with the timeline, why would
wait a year?
Yeah, why we have to wait a year for God to give you the blessing of whatever? Like, shouldn't that stuff happen right away? You know what I mean? And if it's not happening right away, then either what we're putting out isn't reaching God's ears or whatever, or the relationship to God is absolutely messed up. You know what I mean?
Or that's not how the relationship to God works.
Or that's not how it works. Yeah, we've been told it works a way when it doesn't work that way, right? And again,
actually, more importantly, we're not doing the things that would have God come into our existence.
Yeah.
And that would be nationalizing, in a sense, right?
Mm-hmm. Jesus was a later manifestation or avatar of the same Christ principle to the fifth sub-race of the fifth great race. An avatar is not a mortal, but a great spiritual being who voluntarily descends to earth, into earth conditions to help humanity. He must be without earthly parentage, for he is a direct manifestation of the divine to man. He suddenly appears in the proper cyclic moment to re-establish the divine priesthood and bring mankind back to the true principles of the spiritual life. Sound familiar? An avatar appears in a body which seems to be mortal, but is not. So in reality, for the atoms composing it are spiritualized and immortal, hence have naught to do with death or decay. The matter comprising it is so sensitive that through the power of will, it can be made to manifest on any plane of consciousness. Hence, when such a being desires to appear among men by a single act of will, the rate of vibration of his spiritualized body is slowed down to the rate of the physical plane, and it becomes objective, apparently a mortal body of a very fine type. In fact, it corresponds to the spiritual body to which St. Paul refers. There is a natural body and there is a spiritual body. The first was made a living soul. The last was made a quickening spirit. The first man is of earth, earthly. The second man is the Lord from heaven. As we have borne the image of the earthly, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly. Behold, I show you a mystery. Such a body would transcend the limitations of any one race and embody the perfection of all races. Hence, could not arouse race prejudice by being assigned to any one people. And again, going back to the familiarities with Drew Ali, with the lessons that he taught, with the perspective, how we look at him, and this is the chapter talking about the true priesthood, and they're making reference to a priest being an elder, a prince, a hierophant, and a prophet. Right? The world is today awaiting the advent of such another divine teacher or true prophet, a personalized embodiment of the great Christos principle of the universe, the all-pervading, vivifying power which underlines all manifestations of the one life. He comes again, as of old, as the Son of Righteousness, to re-establish the divine priesthood and to restore the principles of the ancient wisdom religion to the sixth subrace now just beginning. Because that's not them giving us signals as to, you know, what it is that we really have, knowing Noble Drew Ali, knowing that we're Moors, knowing our nationality, right? Then ain't nothing else to be told. As this great spiritual being approaches the earth plane, each heart can now respond to the vibrations of his message, will come more or less consciously in touch with him, no matter what organization or movement he may be working in. Right, going back to Drew Ali being a universal prophet. And according as the rational mind of such a one has been trained in the laws of such manifestations and the true philosophy of the mysteries, will his interpretation be clear or imperfect. There are today many hearts who are responding more or less consciously to this force of divine love, now being focused upon the earth plane in greater measure than ever before. Just as at certain seasons of the year, there is a great outpouring of theological students who have graduated from the seminaries, so in the divine world, there are certain cyclic periods when divine love and wisdom is poured out in greater abundance, or when it may be said that many priests are initiated or receive the spiritual illumination which marks them as true priests. And then this is where it goes in the Quran with Drew Ali talking about they got charters for anybody who wants one, and you have grand sheikhs and grand governors and assistant grand sheikhs and whatever, and they're supposed to make the law and enforce the law because they were quote unquote trained, they were given all the lessons, and the duty is at that point to start serving the people because of this divine love that they've received to be in the position of grand whoever, right? Hence, in every organization and society promulgating the true divine wisdom, there will arise some advanced soul who is capable of being directly overshadowed by a ray of spiritual consciousness from the coming avatar, and thus become to that society or organization a direct representative of the avatar. These advanced souls are called avesha, or partial avatars. For while they are not the avatar, in that they are mortal and have a physical personality to contend with, they are overshadowed at certain periods by his divine consciousness. Necessarily, the messages of the various Avesha avatars will differ in details, for the ability of such a channel to give out teachings depending upon factors as the line of endeavor he is interested in, his race, thought, his mental and spiritual capacity, his habits of life, his knowledge of the laws and philosophy of the higher life, and the intellectual training in his mind, through which all the teachings must pass, has received. In this way, the members of every society and movement shall have the divine truth spoken in their own language wherein they were born. Again, going back to the whole idea of the prophecy and how he's a prophet, and well, he didn't, why you guys are Moors, how come you don't speak Arabic and all this stuff, when the prophet's going to come to the individuals in the language that they speak. If anybody says somebody's their prophet, guarantee you they speak their language. The Asian prophets speak Asian languages. The Hindu prophets speak Hindu languages. The Sumerian prophets speak Sumerian languages. It's only right that the prophet of the so-called Negro black colored people who fell to slavery and lost their stuff and whatever like that, and all they know is English now, that he's going to come to them in the language of English, right? Any comments or questions? Keeping this law in mind, we see that an avatar does not come to any one society, order, movement, or sect, but to humanity. Right. Again, keeping this law in mind, we see that an avatar does not come to any one society, order, movement, or sect, but to humanity. And his teachings will be so divine and perfect, yet so simple, unprejudiced, and unbiased by the characteristics of any cult, that they will be equally applicable to all and will appeal to all spiritually minded people, no matter what their race, creed, or social trend of thought. And going back to his lectures, all the stuff that he wrote, divine warning to the nations, plea to the nations, by calling on all Moors, whatever, he was always dealing with humanity. He was always dealing with, yes, I'm a prophet, and, you know, I'm teaching that you are not Negro, black, colored, or whatever, but everybody could benefit from the 18 years of Jesus' life that they never heard about. Right? Remember that our dreams of divine love are true, that life is more than it seems, that the day of little things shall grow into the day of great things. Pay attention to the little things. The avatar must come, but how perfect shall be his work depends on how many can grasp the great plan. How many are ready to sink personality in that perfect obedience which the law of love, justice, peace, and righteousness demands. Pay attention to the little things. The avatar must come, but how perfect shall be his work depends upon how many can grasp the plan, the great plan. And then we have We Are All Moors, Anur Majid's book, where he tells you that NOI had 20,000 in 1930 when they started their stuff, right? So if they were able to pull that many in the lie that they started in 1930 about Islamic nations or whatever, How many was Juali pulling before them? Right. And then again, when we look at, convention pictures and all that stuff, you have to wonder, how many people were really how many people really grasped the work that he was doing? How many people were really down with it? And then we go through the list of when you go through the list of people who would be at the convention, and you see that people were supporting this. All right. Session held of Moorish Science Body. Many delegates from temples attend. The annual convention of the Moorish Science Temple of America, October 14th at Unity Hall, 1340 Indiana Avenue. Prophet Juali, founder and head of the body, will preside over the sessions, which closed Saturday evening. More than 1,000 delegates from 15 temples in America were reported present during the meetings. Following the registration at headquarters Monday, reports were read from two grand governors, T. Crombie Bay, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Lomax Bay, Detroit, Michigan. Tuesday evening, the welcome address was delivered by Alderman Louis B. Anderson. You could look him up. Other speakers were Oscar the Priest, Third Ward Commitment, Dr. Roman Mahari of Medical College, Nashville, Tennessee, Attorney George W. Blackwell and Aaron Payne. Richard Ross was Master of Ceremonies, and Claude D. Green, Managing Editor of the Moorish Guide, is Chairman of the Arrangement Committee, which has worked hard to get everything in splendid order for the reception of the visitors. Wednesday, a parade was held. Teaching Quran. The Moorish Science Temple was founded by Prophet Noble Juali in Newark, New Jersey in 1912. The tenets of the belief of his followers are that their forefathers were Asiatics, brought to America with all other persons of dark skin. They bar the name Negro, African, or any allusion to color. They follow the teachings of the Quran, and movement toward free thinking is a powerful step toward the solution of racial problems. They teach strict cooperation and reciprocity towards each other. Moorish delegates and visitors were served wholesome meals in Unity Hall grill rooms by the members of the Chicago Temple. Sister Pearl Juali, the distinguished wife of Prophet Noble Juali, wore a costume of a native Moroccan princess. Other very beautiful Moroccan costumes were worn by Sister Lomax Bay, wife of Grand Governor of Detroit, Sister Whitehead L., Chicago, Sister Hasselot Bay, Chicago, Sister Cliff Bay, Indianapolis, Sister Watts Bay, Chicago, and others. Prophet Juali wore a native Moroccan princess costume. Governor Lomax Bay and Grand Governor Crombie Bay wore native Moroccan sheet costumes. So again, the idea of these individuals being down with the great plan means that they obviously grasp the lessons. But then when you go to after 1930 and you realize that everybody sold it out, right? And it goes to show that not because people grasp the lessons means that they're really down with it. Not because people say they're, I'm Moorish American and they got feathers and turbans on means that they're actually with the movement. Right? The cry of the Great One is now going forth to all who can hear. Come unto me, my little lambs. The fold is waiting, and the heart of the shepherd yearning. What is this fold? It is the great priesthood of the Most High, the body of his chosen servants, gathered from out of the flower of the races that have passed, and consecrated to the upliftment of humanity, sworn by the most sacred vows to understand, to love, to give. No one word can return unto me void. Not one thought through all the eternities is lost. Think then of the thoughts that have been shed around you as you journeyed through the wilderness of lives and lives. Think of the words that have been spoken through the mouths of the chosen prophets in your ears, life after life, age after age. Will ye still be deaf and dumb to love? To be sheep of the fold means to know your shepherd, to follow gladly, to hear his voice and obey. Not to obey because it seems to you reasonable and profitable and according to your worldly judgment, but to obey because you know and love the voice that speaks. Right? That's why Brother Hassan always makes reference to, the Moors want to meet Noble Drew Ali, just read his literature. Because once you hear the voice of the prophet speak, just like Drew Ali said, you know, my sheep know the sound of my voice. Only true Moors are going to follow. Right? Everybody else is going to go the other direction. To be sheep of the fold means to know your shepherd, to follow gladly, to hear his voice and obey. Not to obey because it seems to you reasonable and profitable and according to your worldly judgment, but to obey because you know and love the voice that speaks, because you have learned through the ages that are past that this is the shepherd who leadeth you beside the still waters of life, who feedeth you with the green and tender grass, who sheltereth you in the fold of his loving arms. This is why, in the fold of loving arms, I just remembered that meme of when they had the European Jesus holding Jamal. That picture just dropped in my head. Free Rise of the Moors. This is why you follow and why you obey. This is the great test of the ages. How often have you gone astray, seeking for strange gods in new pastures? How long has your return and recognition been awaited? And now the clock of time has struck the hour. Behold, the day star rises high in the heavens. Soon, soon must he come on earth, clothed in the garment of flesh. Will he find you still awaiting for his blessings? Or will he find you indifferent, following after your own reason, doubtful of his voice? Unless the sheep know the voice of the shepherd, they will be blind and will never recognize his face. Unless they learn to love, to recognize, and thus obey unquestioningly the divine message, they will never be ready to take their places in the great temple where the true priesthood must work out the great scheme of salvation, the reflection upon earth of the hierarchies of heaven. Man, this sounds like something out of Noble Drew Ali stuff right now. Unless the sheep know the voice of the shepherd, they will be blind and will never recognize his face. And him talking about that, him talking about if you see him in the dream, not to talk to him unless you're spoken to. Right? Going back again to the idea of him being the shepherd and the Moors being the sheep that know the sound of the voice, and where the shepherd goes, only the sheep are going to follow. Right? The wolves are not going to go the way of the shepherd. Or will he find you indifferent, following after your own reason, doubtful of his voice? Right? Him telling the Moors, follow me, I will be the one to lead you through. Stop being in my face, thinking that you know something, you're gonna carve your way. Just follow my way. You're not gonna have any issues. Right? Unless they learn to love, to recognize, and thus obey unquestioningly the divine message, they will never be ready to take their places in the great temple. And Jual is talking about take your places amongst the affairs of men, which the great temple would be, the world in Juali's case. The true priesthood must work out the great scheme of salvation. I think Juali said that he brought. Take us from the slime of life to the solid rock of salvation. The reflection upon earth of the hierarchies of the heaven. And then them telling their people, as it is in heaven, so it shall be on earth. But only if the people recognize and get in line and do what it is that you're supposed to do. Any thoughts on that? Again, that was the message of Aquaria, the significance and mission of the Aquarian age. And we're gonna read chapter 9 of the Mysteries of the Silent Brotherhood. Going off.
What's that? The letter that this is the letter to be read before every meeting. That's the one that's January 15th, 1929.
One of them, yeah. Which one is it?
Remember the day you said again? Like the day you said it was on? I think you said it was a Friday.
Yeah, Friday, January 15th,
Because I went back in the calendar.
1929.
Like on my phone calendar, it shows that January 15th is a Tuesday. 1929. I don't know, I was just checking.
Yeah.
I seen that.
So there it is right there. So that's just going back to the when we put the Qurans, you line up all the Qurans or whatever, and then missing word there, something changed there, wrong word in this one, 5 of these ones, whole thing missing that's not in the other ones. There was obviously tampering with his stuff. Because, yeah, so January 15th, 29 being a Tuesday, right? The 18th would have been the Friday, right? So it could have been typo, even, right? Because the 5 is just the 8 missing somebody could have messed up, somebody's bad writing or whatever. It could have been the version that they had was off some type of print, But that's the whole point of the thing, not to, oh my gosh, forget this, we're not gonna read this no more, because that's just where it goes. You're gonna have those things happening, but it's only gonna happen doing just like that. Go check and just see. Let me just see what this date is. You know what I mean? Is this actually the date? Like, I never thought to check. I never thought to check. Is this the date? Yeah.
On that same video, not that one, the one before. I forgot what it was. I think you're talking about Todd in that video too.
Yeah.
So someone just told me, you just go on my phone calendar, just scroll tonight.
Just look at it and see. Yeah.
I'm like, it's not Friday.
It's not Friday.
So that's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just where where it's gonna go sometimes. But again, it's only gonna go there with studying and doing exactly that, making use of these little stuff that we have in our hand. The amount of nonsense people go on there to do. You know what I mean? Like, If you just think about being in the physical and people don't read or whatever, they just go whatever. On that thing right there, they definitely go whatever. You know what I mean? Don't check. So yeah, that's a good one. 'Cause I didn't even look that stuff up. You see, and again, it just it just shows that you gotta fact check everything. You know what I mean? Read everything 500 times before you say, okay, yeah, we're going with it, because there's always something that could throw something off. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? Maybe everybody now going and switching this thing in their book. You know what I mean? Writing the boat dates on there. But we don't know which day it is now. Was it Tuesday or was it the Friday? You know what I mean? Or did somebody put this whole thing in? Maybe it wasn't even that day. Maybe it was during the convention he said that or something. You know? And they're just throwing dates out there. Chapter 9, Mysteries of the Silent Brotherhood. Opening address of Yahushua with the 7 sages, 7 days in silence. Ashbina said, Assyria is the land of doubt. The chariot of my people, that in which they mostly ride, is labeled doubt. Once Faith walked in Babylon, and she was bright and fair, but she was clothed in such white robes that men became afraid of her. And every wheel began to turn, and doubt made war on her, and drove her from the land, and she came back no more. In form, man worships Allah the One. In heart, they are not sure that Allah exists. Faith worships at the temple of one not seen. No doubt must see her God. The greatest needs of all Assyria is faith, a faith that seasons everything that is with certainty. And then Apollo said, the greatest needs of Greece are true conceptions of Allah the One. In Greece, it is rudderless, for every thought may be a god to worship as Allah. The plane of thought is broad and full of sharp antagonists, and so the circle of the gods is filled with enmity, with wars and base intrigues. Greece needs a mastermind to stand above the gods, to raise the men away from the many gods to Allah the One. We know the light is coming over the hills. Allah speed the light. Matheno said, behold, this land of Egypt of the dead. Our temples have long been tombs of hidden things of time. Our temple crypts are caves and dark. Our temple crypts and caves are dark. In light, there is no secret things. The sun reveals all hidden truth. There are no mysteries in Allah. Behold the rising sun. His beams are entering every door. Yes, every crevice of the mystic crypts of Mizraim. We hail the light. All Egypt craves the light. And Philo said, the need of Hebrew thought and life is liberty. The Hebrew prophets, seers, and givers of the law were men of power, men of holy thought, and they bequeathed to us a system of love that was ideal, one strong enough to lead our people to the goal of perfectedness. But carnal minds repudiated this law of love and filled the minds with selfishness, and purity in heart became a myth. The people were enslaved. But when he comes, who is to come, he will proclaim emancipation for the slaves. My people will be free. Behold, for Allah has made incarnate wisdom, love, and light, which he called Emmanuel. To him is given the key to open up the dawn. And here as man he walked with us. And then the council chamber door was opened, and the Logos stood among the sages of the world, and the sages sat in silence 7 days. Islam. Right, so again, Assyria is the land of doubt, And the chariot of my people, that in which they mostly ride, is labeled doubt. Same things that we're dealing with right now with, you know, we're looking at this departmental results of the government of Canada with regard to the Indigenous people. And they had they're talking about, you know, whatever they claim their results are, financial statements and whatever else, what they achieved as quote unquote the government or whatever, right? And people have no doubt for these people. They think that they're the ones doing something. They're the ones that are fulfilling, you know, whatever quote unquote mandate they have with regard to the Indigenous people. All right, so this is from the minister. This year has been extremely challenging for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. The COVID-19 pandemic, the recent findings of unmarked graves at former residential schools, and the unacceptable deaths of Joyce Ikwan and Chantal Moore have shaken Canada. They have reminded all of us of the clear need for faster and more robust responses to end systematic anti-Indigenous racism and discrimination, confront the historic wrongs of the past, end practices that perpetuate inequity and exclusion, and work faster and more efficient to ensure a just society that is fair and equitable for everyone. And then they have them there with their picture, their smiling picture or whatever, right? The pandemic has highlighted the socio-economic gaps that exist between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people caused by colonization and decades of historic injustices. So they're saying that only because of this thing that happened did they realize that there's injustices between the Indigenous people and colonials in quote unquote Canada. Only because of this pandemic.
When you really sit down and think about it, these people are laughing at us. Absolutely laughing.
So hard, right? Again, the pandemic has highlighted.
Well, highlighting means that it was there, but it's not called attention to it. So
Yeah.
you gotta give them some.
They don't have the orange.
Yeah.
Orange on the
They're definitely
page.
not saying that this thing created that.
Yeah.
No, they're putting a little highlight on it now.
Yeah. Only because of this thing, though. This is why they're highlighting. They weren't highlighting before. The pandemic has highlighted the socio-economic gaps that exist between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples caused by colonization and decades of historic injustices. At the department, we're working in partnership with Indigenous peoples across the country. We aim to provide high-quality services in a consistent way. How long you been on hold with them people again? How long were you on hold again with them?
Hours and something, you know, but yeah, it's up there. But I mean, to me, it's the deeper stuff than that. Even that whole part about equity is fit down the line. They're not, you know, this is definitely about wordplay for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if they've known that this is going on for decades, right? They're admitting right there that this
That
is
they've
going on
known,
for
yeah,
decades.
they've known too.
Right, they've known. So, you know, as I said again, it's about sort of slapping you in your face while telling you it's the classic thing that Taj says. You're going to set up this organization, and you're going to wonder why they're going to set up this organization to help you out.
Yeah.
When the very organization is set up to keep you
down.
sort of playing this game and having them in control again.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that guy asked me earlier about what do we want out of this, or why aren't they or do they recognize you? It's not about that. It's about them getting up and saying, okay, here's your half of the kingdom, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. At the department, we're working. We provide high quality services in a consistent way, using an approach that recognizes the distinctions among indigenous communities. Hear that one? At the heart of our work is the steadfast belief in substantive equality, in opportunity,
Right there.
and in outcomes.
Right there. In our belief, substantive, right there is just all some
Yeah.
legal gobbledygook to
Yeah.
have you thinking that they're really.
They're talking about something. Yeah. Canada will be stronger when everyone has a fair chance to succeed. Amid the
That's just a statement put out there.
Yeah,
that'll happen, but we're not going to make it happen. Is not what they're telling you.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Amid the backdrop of the pandemic, we've pushed forward and provided a wide range of supports to Indigenous communities, organizations, and businesses. We've invested in languages and education. We've improved access to safe drinking water to First Nations on reserve. We've continued our commitment to fully implement Jordan's Principle and collaborated with Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs Canada to launch the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls and to SLGBTQIA. Yeah.
Watch, if you can figure that shit out,
the National Action Plan and expanded critical shelter supports to address gender-based violence. And we've started the work with provincial and territorial partners to transform healthcare systems to eliminate racism towards Indigenous peoples. All our work is carried out in collaboration with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis partners across the country. Partnership is a principle that informs what we do, and we honor the saying, nothing about us without us. Nothing about us without us. True reconciliation is built on respect. In this report,
Nothing without us. Everything is through us.
nothing about us without us. That's crazy.
I'm telling you, that's why I say even reading this stuff over, I mean, I guess it's important to see the sort of, the joke in it all, but it really should be insulting to us.
Yeah, it better be. But again, it's going back to the thing we were talking about earlier with only certain people being able to see certain things. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate that the people don't see the insult. Even when you talk about the Indigenous and the First Nations and the Métis and the whatever, like they haven't thought to go drag these chiefs down yet. Like they're, with all the water stuff, the missing Indigenous women, the 2 LGBTQRSQ, whatever, all that stuff going on. And people are still just chilling with their little ID cards or whatever, that they're Indian. And they know that they're not Indian or whatever if you talk to them. But they're gonna go with this idea. It's nuts. The work of decolonization and self-determination needs our commitment and focus. The new ways to equity in funding and opportunity, and a vision of a healthy future for all children in this country. Our government remains committed to doing this work together. I look forward to continuing the work with Indigenous partners to support Indigenous self-determination and the well-being and economic prosperity of all Indigenous peoples in Canada. Reconciliation must be international. It must be transparent. It must further relationships and respect the commitments Canada and the Crown have made to Indigenous peoples over many years. Every First Nation community that has new access to fresh water, every Inuit young person who can stay home to further their education, every Indigenous person who is treated fairly and respectfully in a hospital is a step in the right direction. But we must work faster because conversely, every student who can't finish their education Every family that doesn't have safe and affordable housing, every person who experiences discrimination in any Canadian institution is an injustice and a loss that we all bear. Canada will be stronger and better when every person has a true and fair chance at success. And then just like all the other foreigners that they bring in to jack your stuff, they're about to open the gates for these Ukraine people to come in here and steal all your stuff too, just like they did with all.
The largest Ukrainian population.
Oh yeah?
Ukraine, across the entire planet
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
already.
All right. So here they come now to take your stuff. All right. Where was the what was the part that was talking about the finance?
Hmm?
Do you remember what part was talking about?
Down there, it just gives you the numbers, it breaks it down. I'm gonna need to go put my computer away.
Okay, no, I got it. Advancing health. Provided Indigenous leadership with resources to keep their communities safe, prioritizing vaccine rollout to all Indigenous peoples, enhancing physical and mental health services, emergency food security efforts, and educational and business relief. The temporary staffing measures were also put in place, announcing funding of $82 million in mental health and wellness supports in August 2020 to help Indigenous communities adapt and expand culturally safe mental awareness services, particularly in the context of COVID-19 pandemic. Invest $15.6 million over 2 years to support co-development of distinctions-based health legislation with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis Nation. This will begin the process of transforming healthcare delivery in Indigenous communities by supporting Indigenous control over the development and delivery of health services. 1.5 billion to help accelerate the work being done to end long-term drinking water advisories. 1.5 billion to fix the water problem that people still got brown water. Invested 112 million to support safe return to elementary and secondary schools on reserves. Increased post-secondary funding supports by 75 million. Additional investment of 25 million to ease immediate pressures facing Indigenous post-secondary institutions. 59 million for First Nations to adapt other on-reserve community infrastructure. 5.7 billion to support 5,800 infrastructure projects.
Recording in progress.
Uh-oh.
That's for my Zoom.
The Canadian Council of Public-Private Partnerships released a study that found that First Nations face an overall infrastructure gap of roughly 30 billion. It's a lot of spending, and stuff's just looking the same or worse.
Did you say 5,800 infrastructure?
Yeah. 5,800.
That's a lot of infrastructure.
Hi, everyone. Sorry about the delay.
Yeah. All right. Right, so that's how it goes in the land of doubt. In the land of doubt, that's the game that they play. Throw finance at it, knowing that it's not really gonna cause change like that. Faith worships at the temple of one not seen, but doubt must see her God. The great needs of all Assyria is faith, a faith that seasons everything that is with certainty. And then Apollo said, the greatest needs of Greece are true conceptions of Allah the One. And again, going back to, again, where we are.
This is our union now, showing their showing their, what do you call it?
Stating the land, whatever.
Stating the-
Oh, the land claim, the land acknowledgement, the acknowledgement.
Yeah, but this is the bullshit. This is the result of all of that. This is really what has come of that.
Yeah,
And we're gonna acknowledge that shit, but it's business as usual.
yeah.
Yeah?
Nailed it.
It's crazy, no, but that's the answer to it now. That's part of that 94 calls to action.
Yeah,
One of them was
is
the acknowledgement of this.
doing this. Yeah, yeah,
Just to show you how crazy this shit is.
Yeah.
What, meanwhile, you're still continuing on
yeah,
all the same stuff.
yeah. Peace, bro. Yeah.
Thought it was appropriate. Wow.
Right on time. Right on time.
Well, Douglas, just busted it, transmission is gone.
Huh?
Transmission is gone in my vehicle,
Oh,
so,
shit.
Yeah, you know how it goes.
yeah.
That's gas expensive anyways. Probably
Yeah,
they
trust you with the-
probably did yourself a favor.
That was the creator just helping you
Yeah.
acknowledge them.
Trust you with the bus, didn't know what time, to leave.
Yeah,
Your fiat in your pocket.
And I'm just happy to be here, thank you.
Peace and love, bro.
Yeah. Forgive me if the address will be coming soon.
Oh yeah. You already know.
Yeah.
We're this regardless.
Yes.
Regardless.
It's all within.
Yeah. Yeah.
Luckily, my head wasn't still in it.
We know the light is coming over the hills. Allah speed the light. Behold, this land of Egypt of the dead. Our temples have long been tombs of hidden things of time. Our temple crypts and caves are dark. And going again to us putting ourselves in the marvelous light. Us making sure that we're in the marvelous light at all times. Because as soon as you get into playing in the darkness, you no longer, are able to exercise as the mastermind, right? Even though, the growth of things out the darkness, and in order for light, there has to be darkness. When we're making all these references with regard to the darkness and crypts and all that stuff, we're dealing with the ignorance of the people. So it's about constantly trying to find ways to know more than you knew, constant reading, constant studying, constant looking within, so that we don't get lost, so that we could be there when we see the light coming over the hills, like talking about us doing the solstice rituals, and being in a place where we could actually see the presentation of the solstice, and then putting our energies with that as it's putting its energies in us by happening. You had any Quran chapters off the top?
I think it was chapter 8. Chapter 8.
Eight. Chapter 8, Jesus reveals to the people their sinful ways. In all the cities of Orissa, Jesus taught. At Katak by the riverside, he taught, and thousands of people followed him. One day, a car of Jagannath was hauled along by the scores of frenzied men. And Jesus said, "Behold, a form without a spirit passes by, a body with no soul, a temple with no altar fires. This car of Krishna is an empty thing, for Krishna is not there. This car is but an idol of a people drunk on the wine of carnal things. Allah lives not in the noise of tongues. There is no way to him from any idol shrine. Allah's meeting place with man is in the heart, and in a still small voice he speaks, and he who hears is still ill. And all the people said, teach us to know the Holy One who speaks within the heart, Allah of the still small voice. And Jesus said, the holy breath cannot be seen with mortal eyes, nor can men see the Spirit of the Holy One. But in their image man was made, and he who looks into the face of man looks at the image of Allah who speaks within. And when man honors man, he honors Allah. And what man does for man, he does for Allah. And you must bear in mind that when man harms in thought or word or deed another man, he does a wrong to Allah. If you would serve Allah, who speaks within the heart, just serve your near of kin. And those who are no kin, the stranger at your gates, the foe who seeks to do you harm. Assist the poor and help the weak. Do harm to none and covet not what is not yours. Then with your tongue the Holy One will speak, and he will smile behind your tears, will light your countenance with joy, and fill your heart with peace. And when the people ask, to whom shall we bring gifts? Where shall we offer sacrifice? And Jesus said, our Father Allah asks not for needless waste of plant, of grain, of dove, or of lamb. That which you burn on thy shrine, on any shrine you throw away. No blessing can attend, and one who takes the food from hungry mouths to be destroyed by fire. When you would offer sacrifice unto Allah, just take your gift of grain or meat and lay it on the table of the poor. For it an incense will rise to the heaven, which will return to you the blessedness, with blessedness. Tear down your idols. They can hear you not. Turn all your sacrifice altars into fuel for flames. Make human hearts of your altars and burn your sacrifices with fire of love. And all the people were entranced and would have Jesus as a God. But Jesus said, I am your brother, man. Just come to show you the way to Allah. You shall not worship man. Praise Allah the One. Islam.
That was a good one, eh?
That was a good one. A good one.
Islam.
Yep. One of them was in the chat said 19. Jesus appears fully materialized to the Eastern sages in the palace of Prince Ravana in India, to the magician priests in Persia. Three wise men speak in praise of their personality of the Nazarene. Ravana, prince of India, gave a feast. His palace in Orissa was the palace where men of thought from all the farther east wanted to meet. Ravana was the prince with whom the child Jesus went to India when he was 12 years old. The feast was made in honor of the wise men of the east. Among the guests were Mengsti, Vidyapati, and Lamas. The wise men sat about the table talking about their needs of India and the world. The door onto the banquet hall was in the east. A vacant chair was at the table to the east. And as the wise men talked, a stranger entered unannounced and raised up his hand in benediction and said, all hail. A halo rested on his head, and light, unlike the light of the sun, filled all the room. And Jesus sat down in the vacant chair. And then the wise men knew it was the Galilee prophet who had come. And Jesus said, behold, for I am risen from the dead. Look at my hands, my feet, my side. The Roman soldiers pierced my hands and feet with nails, and one pierced my heart. They put me in a tomb, and then I wrestled with the conqueror of men. I conquered death. I stamped upon him and rose, brought immortality to light, and painted on the walls of time a rainbow for the sons of men. And what I did, all men shall do. The gospel of the resurrection of the dead is not confined to Jew and Greek. It is the heritage of every man, of every time and clime. And I am here a demonstrator of the power of man. Then he arose and pressed the hand of every man and of every royal host, and said, Behold, I am not a myth made of fleeting winds, for I am flesh and bone and brawn, but I can cross the borderland at will. And they talked together there a long time. Then Jesus said, I go my way, but you shall go to all the world and teach the gospel of the omnipotence of man, the power of truth, the resurrection of the dead. He who believes this gospel of the Son of Man shall never die, the dead shall live again. Then Jesus disappeared, but he had sown the seed. The words of life were spoken in Orissa, and all of India heard. The Magian priests were in the silence of Persepolis, and Casper and the magician priests who were first to greet the child of the promise in the shepherd's home in Bethlehem were with the priests. And Jesus came and sat with them. A crown of light was on his head. And when the silence ended, Casper said, A master from the royal council of the silent brotherhood is here. Let us give praise. And all the priests and masters stood and said, All hail. What message from the royal council do you bring? And Jesus said, My brothers of the silent brotherhood, peace on earth, goodwill to men. The problem of the age has been solved. A son of man has risen from the dead, has shown that human flesh can be transformed into flesh divine. Before the eyes of men, this flesh in which I come to you was changed with speed of light from human form. And so I am the message that I bring to you. To you I come, the first of all the race to be transmuted to the image of Allah. What I have done, all men will do, and what I am, all men shall be. But Jesus said no more. In one short breath, he told the story of his mission to the sons of men, and then he disappeared. The Magian said, Some time ago, we read this promise now fulfilled upon the dial plate of heaven. And then we saw this man who has just demonstrated unto us the power of man to raise from carnal flesh and blood to flesh of Allah, and bathed in Bethlehem. And after many years, he came and sat with us in this same groves. He told the story of his human life, of trials, sore temptation, buffeting, and woes. He presented along the thorny way of life till he has risen and overthrown the strongest foes of Allah and man. And he is now the only master of the human race whose flesh has been transmuted into flesh divine. Islam.
Isn't there another one?
37. He is the God-man of today, but everyone of earth shall overcome and be like him, a son of Allah. Islam. Any thoughts on that? Oh, go ahead.
On 10 it says, well, for me it says Jewish prophet, but you said another word. I don't know what the word you said at that part.
Pretend?
For 10, line 10.
And Jesus sat down in the vacant chair, and then the wise men knew it was the Gentile prophet who had come.
Gentile, yeah. For us it says Jewish in the small book.
Yeah.
So it has to be Gentile.
Again, interesting.
Even the one before, I was going to ask you too, it said, when you're reading, you just said the one right here says Holy One, but even that's like smaller stuff. Just having the word holy in there.
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely, tampering. Yeah, there's so much stuff in them, and then with there being, all these different covers, you have that.
Actually, tracking back on what you were saying about the light, that is the thing in the world because we're all living in darkness. So the only thing, the opposite to that we can receive is light.
Mhm.
I remember when I used to be in the lodge, Timnath here, region number 5, part of the Brotherhood. Actually, I actually went up to Ninth Commander, which is the Royal Arch Lodge, but I never really practiced on that level. I was initiated at that level, but wasn't practiced on that level.
Right.
And that was all the lodge is basically about.
It's my work phone. I'm anxious.
And that's all the lodge is about, is just seeking light, of the unknown, as much as possible. Especially when you're in the lodge and you're being initiated, you go through a ritual of, well, there's a lot of fear, there's death. You go through many different level, death, fear, and, with all that, we are blindfolded.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, we're so terrified of what we went through the initiation. That used to be a fun part for me to initiate someone new. Because when they're blindfolded, they do so many things to them, even some things that are evil. They would sick to while they're walking with one breast out knee, excuse me for being dramatic.
Yeah.
Someone would sick someone with a pin, with a pin. This is all in initiation, right? And it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
I used to be like, holy shit, where did this big dog come from? It was kind of fun. And then at the end of it, after you went through all that scare and being dead and buried and come back to life, what do you need? What do we need? Light.
Light, yeah.
Because we were all
Blindfolded the whole time, yeah.
Dog a bite, trying everything to buy, I don't know where that come by.
Yeah.
It was kind of fun. It was kind of fun, but
All part of the ritual, yeah.
because light.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we need light.
You need the light.
To be enlightened of what is.
Same
Yeah.
ritual with the sweat lodge.
Yeah.
Spirit walks, all these things are all done.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The unknown, It's like expect the unknown in life. But then when you have light, then you know of an idea.
It's also about projecting your light forward and not, within the darkness, you have to project your light.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's you, it's the action.
Yes. Once you're in darkness, what you need is light.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, this prophet is totally right on point in everything that he says.
Was there did you get to go through any of the Quran and stuff like that?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I didn't finish it.
Yeah.
But I
But
read
you got through.
it, and I
Yeah.
read through the constitutional, documentation.
Right.
So anything to try to get myself in there because I've already been through it. I've
Yeah.
experienced what I'm supposed to experience to be here. So that's why I'm here.
It's long.
I've been thinking about this, being here for months, but I wanted to finish my writing of what was done to me, so then, I had a reason to be here.
Yeah.
And to speak up, I have to because it's what I've been through. It was given to me to speak on the behalf because of the experience, not just the theory and hear about it. I've actually been through, the roughest part of it.
Yeah.
To be a nigger or black, Jamaican, African American, West Indies, I've been through it.
Yeah.
In the worst ways, man.
And that's part of the 40 days, 40 nights and all that stuff, and being in the tomb and all that. Same thing, the darkness, being in that status, and then getting to this side of the status and realizing that, oh damn, like I was losing out back then. You know what I mean? Look at the experiences that happened, even though there was some light experiences that happened, you know what I mean, to get you to this place. But the idea of it being, a dark time and these bad things happen and oh my gosh, they're doing this and they're doing that and whatever. It's all to lead you to this place where you can actually see you know, that it was a lesson. It
Right.
wasn't really about what happened then. It was really about, well, what did you learn going through it? And then now that you learned, what are you gonna do with the lessons that you receive from it?
But the thing about it, while I was going through it, I mean, of course, we're all human. We've got our ups and downs and regret and get them less. But now I just love every experience that I've been through.
Mhm.
Don't care how bad it was, how shameful, how dark. No, I love it.
Yeah.
I love what I've gone through, or else I wouldn't be here.
And you receive the gift of it. You're not focused on being
Yeah,
depleted by it. It's actually
Right.
power.
right. It makes me feel good of what I've done. While I was going
Al,
through it,
say Al.
I was feeling bad.
Al, not Al.
Nothing passes, you're responsible.
Yeah.
And it's just like you mentioned about the 40 days in the wilderness, because you go to Pharaoh and say, Pharaoh, let my people go. You let them go because they don't know they're going to be wandering around. Because it's better you say, Pharaoh, let my people know who they are. And when they know, then they will choose whether to go or stay. It's up to them. Just tell me who I am. Don't let me go and I don't know who I am. I'll bump up in the wall and everything because for 40 years.
Well, more than likely they'll go right back to Pharaoh.
Of course, because we don't know. They just let us go and we don't know where we're going and why we're going and when we're going to get there. So it's better in today's day, it's Pharaoh, let my people
Let
know
my people know. Yeah.
who they are.
Straight.
It's not let my people know.
Yes.
Straight up. Was there any questions or comments, anything from what we read earlier, Red Book, Holy Quran, or anything else?
I've got a question, but it's not pertaining directly to this.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah, whatever questions you have, you could ask those.
Man, I want to know where I can get one of your CDs, man.
Oh, we got some here. We got some here.
Yeah, man,
I'll set you up.
I'll
set you up.
love the vibe, you know?
Yeah,
Love the power coming out, you know what I mean?
yeah.
The best part is when you're bumping it and you're conveyance and everybody's like,
What is that?
it's so much fun to watch. Stuff at a land and people waiting for the bus and they're hearing it and they take it in.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Even if they don't
It's
understand.
just
it.
really-
Few seconds, yeah, the few seconds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2 seconds and they're like,
Hey, I want to get one of
Yeah,
that. It's
yeah. Or you
but
see
every
someone's
word that
frown
comes out
change
is
to
knowledge.
relax.
Mm.
Everything that comes out is teaching you. So people just wait to hear the next line, you know what I mean? They're like, damn, I want all of that.
Yeah.
And the best thing in life is to know, and the worst thing is not to know. And when you spit the knowledge that we should know, we definitely need it. We want it. It's amazing.
Somebody in the chat asked a question about I don't know if anybody saw it was a mall or whatever, some spot in Ukraine. They had a big Nazi symbol on the stairs or whatever.
I saw that, yeah.
Like, you know how they do art on the stairs, so they made this Nazi symbol out of it. So what are Nazis doing there or whatever like that. Remember that's quote unquote Nazi Ukraine.
Yeah,
Like, they were there at one time.
it's all over
I mean,
that.
yeah,
area, too. It's
like
rampant.
they were there.
It's
It's not
countries as
some
well, especially there.
yeah, it's not some remember that when they're talking Nazis in the West, it's the evil guys trying to doing the Jews or whatever like that. When they talk about the Nazis over there, it's a socialist party. And everybody was down with it. Africans were Nazis, Jews were Nazis, Japanese were Nazis, all these different nations that realized that, this is a social nationalist organization were saying that they're down with it. You know, it's only over here that you get the lie of what it is. You know, so when we, and then of course, you know, when we go to Buddhist and Hindu cultures and stuff like that, they got swastikas and that, and they're not talking about them like, oh, they're Nazis, look at them doing the Nazi stuff or whatever. They're not looking at them like that. And they got big Nazi flags and all that stuff too. You know, even though it's going the other direction and all that stuff, but you know, that's another story. Yeah. Yeah. You know.
And remember again, the Khazars were the Ukrainians were the Khazars.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
one that actually went to
Went and did
Israel
the
and
stuff.
took over the land,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're the one that poses as the
Yeah, they're the didn't want their own birthright, went and stole somebody else's stuff.
Ukrainians.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
And in fact, Putin is actually the good guy in this scenario.
Yeah.
Because of the outlook of it, he sees basically what's going on. He knows that the one world order is trying to, do the financial
one world, everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, most of the biolabs actually in Ukraine, and that's what Putin is trying to get rid of. Because he's not down with the one world order and all this bullcrap that's taken over the world. He's not down with that.
And instead, they're going to publicize how all the black people are stuck in the train station, and it's just so
Why
terrible.
would they help you? You're not natural.
Thank you. What did you expect?
Exactly.
A car to come and stop in front of your place and take you to the
My
airport?
question is that if you know you can't go that way, why don't you try to?
Yeah, like there's
There's
so much stuff's around. Yeah.
Other directions, how about trying to make person small? Maybe you didn't idea you don't.
Yeah.
You're not you.
I just think it's odd that a group of Africans are calling themselves black. That aspect of it doesn't
Yeah.
make any
Because
sense.
they're not and they don't know.
No, but I'm thinking, it sounds like you speak Swahili. So maybe, just confused.
Yeah.
Very confused. Doesn't make sense at all.
And just like Kuja was saying, I mean, how do you want me to forget my own people and put you who are black ahead of them? Man, get out of here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They also see us as being very, a Ukrainian woman, strangely enough, said to me one day that she saw me and she said she got angered that I was doing this course, and she was upset that I was the only other person that came to the course because she had to do it with me. We had to interact. And it upset her because I was so
Knowledgeable.
I was so grand, and I came in with this big energy, and I have everything, and I'm so beautiful, and I have everything in the world. And I thought her facial expression was the average, that conversation.
Yeah.
And really, she was insecure within herself because I stepped into the room. And so, why would someone who approaches, seeing our people from that perspective, why would they put our people on the train first? Why would they? They already feel inferior, and so they behave superior to help themselves.
Yeah.
Because they know who we are, we just don't know.
We just don't know. Yeah.
Exactly.
And once we start,
see us, they're fearful and
Yeah.
intimidated, and we don't know what's going on. We don't know why they're acting like that.
us not knowing who we are gives them their power, that their superiority complex that they have. Because they know, this guy doesn't know who he is. I could tell him anything right now.
Exactly.
Probably get it.
It's natural in us and actually learned in them.
It's just funny that they actually. Yeah.
Like looking for it. Like,
You won't help us? No.
Help you to
Why
do
should
what?
we?
Get out before our people.
And then they're showing up now. You guys are late. I mean, these guys just reaching. You see how much people are in front of you. Like, you're not going on.
How long did the happy bug borders and
Yeah.
should get out, and now you guys are still there.
Yeah.
The train was already full when I saw the train. It was as much people inside as there was outside.
I saw a report someplace, someone on the ground who was interviewing this man who said that he was someone from the military, from the Ukrainian military, came to him and gave him a gun and said, would you like to fight for Ukraine? And he just looked at him like, so you just left us all here and now we're here, so we're Ukraine. The whole thing is a different.
But then you're not gonna help and then get mad when they don't let you on the thing.
It just seems.
We can't take it to training, but here's a gun.
Here's a gun.
For us.
Let's fight for us.
Yeah.
Messed up.
Yeah.
Messed up. So messed up.
They expect us all to be sheeps, and of course, sheeps are one of the most stupidest animals that the Creator ever created. I mean, nothing that the Creator is stupid, but I'm just saying, a sheep will see a lion lying there and go
Jump over it like a
and
fence.
go to see when he snored, see how much teeth he had in his mouth. Yes, that's what happens. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, that's it. Stupid. We don't think about things, We just want to be led.
I won't say we, I say them.
Yeah, and that's
I
why.
put me and them in the same category.
Right.
Like, that's them.
Yeah. That's them. That's them folks.
And that's why in the Bible, they're always referring to sheeps
Yeah.
and shepherds.
Mhm.
And the shepherds are like the wolf in sheep's clothing, of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And they need the masses to be controlled. The masses are the sheeps.
No, they're controllable.
Yeah. Corralled.
You gotta put the thoughts in their head and they run with it.
Well, 2 weeks ago I saw fake news, and then a week and a half ago it's Ukraine.
From the same people.
Yeah,
From the same people.
I don't understand. I'm so baffled by the whole idea.
Wow.
Yeah, it's messed up. It's freaking messed up.
There's a guy used to be at the CNN back in the day, what's his name, Vladimir Poznan.
Mm.
Yeah, I'll tell you, watch his intake on that.
For real, huh?
Russia,
Yeah.
Ukraine, and NATO.
Yeah.
They don't make that's bad.
Yeah.
They made
You made them?
So whatever aggression he's given them is because they.
What's this thing again? The dude's name? Vladimir
Vladimir Poznan.
Poznan.
He's a journalist, not a reporter. So check him out.
Yeah.
I'm Friday. Someone I usually do deliveries for a job company. He's the one who put me onto him. So I put him on to William Cooper's book.
Yeah.
I love it.
Randomly came on after I was watching one of your lectures, and that's what came on after. Really that.
Oh, the guy? Oh, for real? Yeah.
Watch, check it out.
Suggestions, huh? The algorithm, yo. You're in the good algorithm right now. Peace Wars. Don't forget, we have Solstice event coming up. That's going to be Kingston.
The school's thinking of having an event for the children to celebrate the same thing, but we were waiting for you all.
Okay,
announce
to
when
see what's
the
good.
solstice will
Okay,
come.
okay.
So we'll decide that this week.
And Town Hall on the 27th. We'll probably have the both things open here and huh? Yeah, there was an email sent out already. That was it. Anything else?
Rennie's going to Hamilton in April, beginning of April.
And then Ajax end of April or something?
Huh?
Ajax end of April? All right. Peace and love, Mars. Father on the left, two on the right. Allah, Father of the universe.
Allah, Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
By day.
Through a holy prophet.
Through a holy prophet.
And noble to our
Noble to our
Islam. Islam words. Are you about to? What?